Hello, my name's Adrian Rooke, and I'm a therapist, and I spent, I suppose, the vast part of my career working in the field of addiction, or specialising in the field of addiction, and working with the powerful consequences in people's lives of becoming enslaved by behaviours or substances. Well, I have my own experiences of addiction. I grew up in an addictive family background. My father was an alcoholic. He ran pubs, and there was always from within me, from a small child, a longing, a craving to connect with something bigger than myself. I had an experience as a small boy with nature, where I would crawl inside of a hollowed out hawthorn copse, and I was perfectly safe in there, and that was where I felt most connected to, my understanding of God, or the goddess at the time. I used to believe that I could put my ear to the ground and hear the heartbeat of Mother Earth, and that was my safe space away from my alcoholic family and the bullying and all the behaviours that went on. I believe that, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for my relationship to nature. Throughout the course of my adult life, I've experienced lots of physicalities, physical breakdowns. I've had a weak heart for most of my life in one way or another. I've had several open heart surgery operations, and I would say that for me, the surgeons do their stuff, but the healing for me came after getting back out to nature. My dreams of being back with trees that are very important to my life, and flowers and butterflies, and the whole west of England, which is my stomping ground, and the limestone from which the West Country is formed on, is in my blood. It's in my veins. It's in my DNA, and and I long for that. And that, most of my healing experiences, particularly from my addiction, came in nature, because I would escape to the woods and sit with my back to a tree and gain solace from the demons that rampage through my life and through my behavior, due to in part to my background, my upbringing, my life story, but also choices that I made, and nature's always offered me a thread, or a golden thread, to come through that, to see the bigger picture of what my purpose is on this earth journey, this life plane. But my experience, particularly over this lockdown period of COVID, and I spent most of that time in Hampshire, has been a real awakening for me that nature is so powerful. The natural world is so powerful, and that it continues despite us and what we do with our planes and our flying. But I was acutely aware that the wild garlic, I've never seen wild garlic so prominent as it was this year. I've never seen so many butterflies as I have done this year. So many different species that have been on the at-risk register, and realistically, I don't, mathematically that shouldn't have made any difference, because the young butterflies from last year, the eggs would have been laid, but whether more survived to come to adulthood, I don't know. But I've spent many a happy hour following the brimstones and the marbled whites, and it's just been abundant this year. And I think for me, the lesson is, slow down. Human beings, we need to slow down and just start to, maybe create a new story for ourselves and a new narrative, which is based around appreciation of the simple things in life. Sitting in a sunny meadow, just hearing the bird song for the first time because it wasn't drowned out by cars or planes. It sang to my soul this year. And that's been the great lesson for me is, there's so much potential, so much power in healing from the earth on offer to us, and and the more I look into spirituality, and the more I spend time, looking into the magnetic reactions of human beings, and and the earth, and how we all interact magnetically. The earth feeds us. Walking more barefoot on the earth, getting that magnetic, the input, the healing of feeling Mother Earth as a living, breathing, conscious entity rather than, some commodity that we can keep exploiting. And I do see that, all across the world, people are waking up to that. How do we live in harmony with this incredible organism that we call home, rather than just looking to see what we can extract for our own individual comfort and benefit. Okay, I had an experience early on in my decision-making process when I was trying to work out where I needed to be spiritually, to maximize my own life journey and my life experience. And I just decided to send off for this Druidic teaching training program. And I went to a place with a friend of mine called Tinkinswood, which is on the outskirts of Cardiff, and it's a big capstone, the biggest capstone I believe in the country. And it transpires that the whole thing is made of crystal, different crystal polarities. So it's like one giant magnet, and it's historically for hundreds of years, local people have gone there for healing, and so they would have got magnetic healing off of the stone without realizing what was going on for them. And I asked the question. I was sat on the stone meditating, and I asked the question, is this the right path for me? Should I be going down this route? And there was a niggling that kept coming, and there was on the side of this stone monument was a blackthorn and a hawthorn copse, and it kept calling me to go over there, and I didn't quite know why, and I thought I need to follow this through. So I walked over, and I found a little path, almost a hidden path, that took me into the wood. And as I was walking through the wood, I had this a wren, a tiny little wren, landed 12, 14 inches in front of me on a branch. And I stopped, I froze, and this wren was talking to me. It was chirping away, and it was there. And I thought, oh my God, I've never been this close to a wren before. And then out of the peripheral corners of both of my eyes, I could see something, and I looked, and either side of me was a wren doing the same thing on a branch, just chirping away. And I thought, it came to me, if there's a wren behind me as well, then I've got a wren in all four directions, north, south, east, and west. And I turned my head slowly, very slowly, so that I didn't break the magic of what was going, because it was a magical experience. And I looked behind, and there was a wren behind me. And I didn't know the story at the time, but I found out within a very short space of time after that experience that there was an old Druidic story about the wren being the king of the birds, and how it became the king of all birds. And the wren stands for wisdom through cunning. And cunning's a funny word these days because it has kind of maybe not so nice connotations attached to it. But actually, the cunning folk used to be the healers in our old society. And it meant, you know, using all of your wisdom and your strength in order to achieve, in order to, you know, in order to get things done. And it wasn't always brute force or size that mattered in completion of a task or a project. And so that became my Druid name, Druid, and it stood me in good stead. And I find whenever I'm troubled, and whenever things are going on in my life, you know, a wren will always appear for me. And I've got wrens nesting in my garden now, and they look after me. And there is that association, spirit animals, the connection that we can have as human beings with the natural world is incredible. We just got to be open to find it, or to let nature find us, because it will do if we're open. Well, my challenge would be, and you know, I had an experience many years ago, and you know, that was working with a bard who was in an American prison, and I'll tell this briefly. He wasn't able to access soil, and he was working through the elements, and I had to send a letter to apply to the prison governor for him to have a cup of soil taken to his cell. And the letter that he sent me, I came home from work one day, and you know, I think it'd been a busy day, and I was a little bit, you know, caught up in the mundanity of working and everyday life, and I wasn't feeling so good. And I opened the door, and there was the letter from this guy on the mat, and I read the letter, and his absolute gratitude and awe in having that cup of soil after several years of being removed just from a simple thing like the earth absolutely blew me away. And I felt very humbled by that, and I'm very aware of my ingratitude at times. And it was pouring with rain, and I remember it, and I went out into the garden and I found myself a little patch of soil, and I just scraped away, so that I was at really it. The soil was on the surface, and I led. I mean, I had the privilege of having my garden, so I could do them. Although I did have neighbours over, I wasn't really thinking of that at the time. But I took all my clothes off and led naked on the grass in the rain, just feeling the earth holding me and the rain washing away all of my angst, all of my preconceived ideals. And you know, there was a real sense of all that negativity that floods us as human beings from time to time was just being washed into the earth and held and transformed by the goddess, by our Earth Mother. And you know, and I felt so connected to the earth at that time. So my challenge would be, if you can, particularly if it's raining, but it doesn't really matter, it doesn't have to be raining, is just find somewhere nice and private for yourself, and you know, just take off, you know, as many of your clothes as you feel comfortable. You know, I'm all right taking all of them off these days, but you know, it was like just lying out on the earth and really feeling that electromagnetic connection that we have with basically, you know, our mother, which is the same elements, you know, composed of the same elements as our bodies. So it's a coming home and a connection, and you know, it was very nurturing. So give it a go, guys.